Welcome everyone to Buddha's Center. My name is Jeff Allen, and once again we're looking at the Lam Rim. We're looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment. But by looking at that, we get to look at a lot of other very beautiful texts, and I feel so fortunate to know what those other texts may be and where to find stuff that relates to this material that can be helpful for us, because maybe it's put in a different way, or it's put in a more poetic way that isn't quite as literal, and it takes a variety of ways of explanation for a variety of sentient beings to kind of get the message. Someone like me, I know that it seems like when we have a variety of different sources and ways of looking at something, it can help me hone in on what the real pith of the information is. What's the point of all of this? And the point of all of this is to transform our mind, to take our minds from where it is now, if your minds are like mine, which is sullied and not so certain of things, and grasping at reality as having some kind of autonomous, substantial existence, and grasping at things incorrectly. This allows us to kind of shake up that way of looking at things, and while we are accumulating enough merit to be able to actually shake things up, because it takes an enormous amount of merit and purification to meet with these teachings and to understand these teachings. And I feel so fortunate that we can continue to do this over and over again on Sundays and on Thursdays, and then hopefully every day we're trying to mature our mind. We're trying to take this Buddha lineage that we have in all of us that are listening. We have this potential to mature, and this class like this is what we use to mature. It's the information that will help us mature. It tells us how to mature. It tells us how to reach what our potential is. And when we look at our potential, it blows my mind that it could be a perfect being. My potential is perfect. My potential isn't like really smart, or my potential is to be omniscient. I have the potential within me because I have this mental consciousness that's not in the nature of sullied. It has these adventitious defilements that can be removed through a process of purification. And I can take this mind that currently has this afflictive obstructions and the cognitive obscurations or obstructions to omniscience, to a place where it is perfect. And that perfection really is amazing to me, because it doesn't seem like the kind of mind I have could possibly do that. But when we start to look logically at how it could happen, we become convinced of it. We become more and more convinced of it, at least, because it's not that someone just said it's possible. There's information out there and reasons that support this idea that I could have perfect wisdom, perfect love, perfect compassion, perfect skillful means, and perfect power. So it's not just that somebody said so. It's because this idea is supported by reasons that I can mix my mind, that I can saturate my mind with, that will allow me to know it's true. And that's what's great about the graduated stages of the path and the various divisions of learning that we can engage in throughout this process. We can be convinced of this. We can get to a point where we intellectually, conceptually, can infer correctly that all of this stuff is true and that all of this stuff is possible, without having to rely on a rabbit's foot or rely on an external teacher who we believe in or have blind faith in. We can rely on an external teacher to teach us the truth of suchness, and that's how we become liberated. And by teaching us the truth and by giving us this information to work within our own minds, it allows us to achieve our potential and actually believe that we can before we do. Because if we don't believe that we can, if we haven't arrived at it through some kind of understanding that we've worked out for ourselves, we are not going to keep going. it'll just kind of sputter out. And our joyous effort, or the effort that we were previously putting in that was really founded in blind faith, the blind faith, when life shakes us up too much, isn't going to be enough to really allow us to hold on to the path. And it's only when we realize through study, through hearing the correct teachings, through analyzing the teachings, and making this kind of knowledge our own, that we believe it enough to keep going. And we see so many people who get very excited in the beginning. It's an amazing new thing to learn, and it seems, very exotic and colorful. But unfortunately, there are a lot of exotic things in this world, and a lot of colorful things in this world, and a lot of ideas and opinions in this world that sound really, really good. And the ones that reify or make me believe everything is just the way it is are the most convincing to a mind like mine. So I have to unconvince myself with proper sources that things aren't really how they are. And I have to convince myself, I have to become convinced. My teacher doesn't have, is convinced or not convinced, doesn't help me in the end. Because at the time of death, I alone take that journey. And we can say our teachers can help us in the intermediate state. That's a very hidden kind of thing. That's something that we hope so, but if we get to a point when we're about to have that separation happen, where we say, oh, okay, well, I know kind of what's going on because this is my knowledge, then we rely on our mind to be what helps us when there's no one else there. And that's what's so important about this. And before we get started, let's get into the 7-point Vairocana posture I've gone over many times. I have now the support of a dog, which is helping keep me warm, keep my back straight. It's not in the teaching, though. The 7-point Vairocana posture does not have a dog in it. But today mine does. So we make our back, put our legs into the cross-legged, preferably lotus posture, right hand on our left, thumbs touching, back straight like a stack of coins, shoulders in a comfortable position, head slightly forward, eyes slightly open, pointing at our nose, kind of down at a 45-degree angle, and our mouth in a comfortable position with our tongue against the teeth, which allows for the saliva to circulate and not overflow in our mouth. And we find these 7 points, and we find this kind of Vairocana posture in the Kamalashila's stages of meditation, Lama Tsongkhapa's text, and so forth. Great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment. And then in Pabonka Rinpoche's Liberation in the Palm of Your Hands, and then many, many other sources. And sometimes it says hands on thighs, sometimes right hand on left, but generally speaking, all of the other points of the posture are exactly the same. So we'll get into that 7-point Vairocana posture, and sometimes it's called an 8-point, and that's the breath. So let's begin with that. Let's breathe in and out. So when we do any kind of single-pointed meditation, we always have a focal object. That's where we start. We say, what's our focal object? So our focal object is going to be the breathing in and out, and then counting the breath. So cycles of breath and counting. And then we're going to also add a front generation image of Buddha Shakyamuni, beautiful radiant form, but a static form, about an arm length away, height of our eyes, about 2 inches, or the size of our thumb. So if that becomes too much, if it's too much multitasking, just do the breath and the counting. We find that if we have a real problem with conceptuality, we find that as an antidote right in the great texts. And it's said over and over again, and Buddha Shakyamuni himself said, if there's a huge problem with conceptuality, focus on the breath. So I think that many of us as Westerners are so overstimulated and addicted to stimulation that over-conceptuality is just a given for most of us. So it's very good to use this technique to get our minds to a place where it's not as busy and distracted and so forth. So we have the focal object of the breathing in and out and the counting, and Buddha Shakyamuni in the front generation. And then we're going to have a little spy in our mind we call introspection, that's checking to see whether our mindfulness, which is not forgetting the focal object, that's the mindfulness, is doing its job. So we have a little spy seeing if our mind has swayed from those focal objects. Is our mind distracted? Is our mind scattering and excited? Is our mind sleepy and dull? Does the Buddha Shakyamuni getting darker and darker and darker, and we suddenly feel like taking a nap? Or is Buddha Shakyamuni image radiant and just there and bright, but static in exactly the way that we're wanting to imagine it? That would, if it's getting dull and we're getting sleepy, this is something that's an obstacle to our meditation. And if our mind is scattering and thinking about things other than breathing, counting, and Buddha Shakyamuni, if it's excited, then this is an obstacle to meditation. So the antidote is bringing, is using the introspection to say, uh-oh, and then mindfulness brings that object back. And we, so let's do that for a moment to be able to get our minds into a more realistic place that isn't scattered all over the place, nor is it sleepy and dull. And because in order for us to truly hear these teachings, truly set good motivation, we're going to need a pretty clear mind. Because how many times have you heard a million things and not really heard them, or heard them just a little wrong? And that is because we haven't discriminated it correctly. We haven't really heard it correctly. Our mind, for some reason, has one of those faults of the pots we've talked about 100 million times. Maybe we're not listening at all, or maybe we're forgetting it because we're not listening well enough, or maybe we have these ideas in our mind that are corrupting it. So let's try to get to a place where we don't have any of those things. A very hard place to get to, not something to be expected that's going to just happen. But if as Atisha said, nothing becomes more difficult through familiarization. It becomes easier. So the more we accustom ourselves to doing this, the easier it will become, and the more apt we are to focus in general all of the time. And this kind of focus will not only help us, to be able to progress, in this amazing spiritual path, this very, this thing that, is like a super mundane idea, but it also help us in mundane ways to, listen to people better, to be able to help, people generally in society better, be a better friend, be a better partner, etc. So if we can get to that point where we're doing better at any of those things, I don't think anyone would disagree that it's helpful. So let's start there. Let's start with the breathing in, out, count, Buddha Shakyamuni. Think about how lucky we are to have this human basis with these 8 leisures. We found just this once, as Lama Tsongkhapa says, that's so hard to find. We have it. We have this human basis that we can engage in practice with. We know who Buddha Shakyamuni is. We've heard of the 3 turnings of the wheel of Dharma. that incredible, incredible being who was so kind to us, a being who's removed all of the afflictive obstructions and obstructions to omniscience. Perfect wisdom, perfect love, perfect compassion, perfect skillful means, and perfect power. And from that omniscience and love and compassion for us, Buddha Shakyamuni explained the Four Noble Truths, explained the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge and the Bodhisattva Path, explained the Wheel of Good Differentiation, and taught us about our Buddha nature. We will all become Buddha. We will all wake up from the sleep of ignorance. All sentient beings will become enlightened. We all have Buddha nature. We have a Buddha nature. Our mind can mature. Our mind isn't static in a state that can't be purified, that the defilements of our minds can be removed through a process, through a path, that same path that Buddha Shakyamuni engaged in. Our mind's lack of inherent existence makes it so it can mature. The state of purity that all of our minds have and that Buddha's minds have allow for our minds to mature. Rejoice in this. Recognize how fortunate we are. We have to remove the afflictions. We have to remove the stains of the afflictions. We have to remove the coarse self-cherishing attitude and the subtle self-cherishing attitude. This is what the Buddha has done. Look at the difference between us and the Buddha, but recognize the sameness. Recognize that our mind has the same exact nature, empty of inherent existence. Now imagine that from the static state of Buddha Shakyamuni becomes alive, is smiling and so proud that we're here today, engaging in exactly what he has in mind for us, engaging in a pathway that we will achieve fearlessness and bliss. This is what the Buddha has in mind for us. This is what the Buddha wants for us. This is what the Buddha has and what we will have, fearlessness and bliss. When we mature our minds to the state that Buddha Shakyamuni matured his mind to through the Bodhisattva path. So smiling, so happy with us. Now imagine that Buddha Shakyamuni is smiling and a fireworks almost from Buddha Shakyamuni takes place. That imagine the entire merit field was being held as one with Buddha Shakyamuni and now is very clear in the space in front of us. Imagine all the gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas, imagining His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Khenser Geshe Wandak, Geshe Lobsang Gompo, Geshe Dorje Damdu, Demalocho Rinpoche, Umzala Geshe Aga, Geshe Mala Tenzin Ladrin La, Ani Tupten Chodron, Jeffrey Hopkins, Lama Alan Wallace, imagining all these holy beings who've had such an effect on our minds, who care about us so much and put in so much effort to try to help us to mature. Any beings you consider holy, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, Chado Rinpoche, all of these beings, just imagining them in the space in front of you. Imagine the beings of the extensive deeds lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Maitreya and Asanga, and Basu Bandhu and Dharmakirti and Dignaga and Haribhadra and Vimuktasena and Gunaprabha and Shakyaprabha and Lama Salimpa. Imagining all these holy beings in the space in front of us that we have such a connection to. We know about grounds and paths. We know about logic and the things that we should abandon and the things that we should engage in because of these holy beings, the extensive deeds lineage, who've taught us so many amazing things through our teachers. Imagine the beings of the profound view lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni, Manjushri and Nagarjuna, and Buddha Palita and Chandrakirti and Aryadeva and Shantideva, Kamala Shila, Shandarashita, and Baba Vega, imagining all of these holy beings, imagining Lama Atisha, imagining the beings of the lineage of blessings passed down from Vajradhara and Saraha and Machipa and Tulopa and Naropa and Marpa and Milarepa and Gampopa, imagining all in the space in front of you. Imagining the lineages passed down from Atisha. Atisha was so kind to combine all of these practices into an integrated path, to show us how of these things all needed to be practiced in order to become a Buddha, in order to how to combine these teachings. He passed this down to Drongtompa and the three Kadampa lineages. We're so fortunate to have been blessed by these beings. Imagine the holy beings of the Nyingma, Kagyu, Sakya, and Gelug order of Tibetan Buddhism, Padmasambhava and Sakyapandita and the Karmapas, and Lama Tsongkhapa, Kirtubje, Jelsubje, Jayan Sheba, Basu Chiji Jetsun, Janja Ripi Dorje, Gonchu Jimmy Wampo. All of these beings, even if we don't know exactly who they are, I promise you they've had a profound effect on your mind if you've been studying Buddhism and have felt that change. Imagine the beings of highest yoga tantra, yogic tantra, action tantra, and performance tantra. All the 35 Buddhas, the protector deities of the small scope Vaisravana and the medium scope Dharmapala and the great scope Mahakala. And Palden Lama, we're so connected to Palden Lama, the wrathful emanation of Tara. So many of us receive so many white Tara initiations. We're so connected to these beings. We're so fortunate. Rejoice in this for a moment. Think about this for a moment. All of these names I've said have influenced our minds, if our minds have been influenced by Buddhism. I speak of these names and I almost feel like I know these beings, like we've met, like I could shake their hands, because they've had such an impact on my life in such profound ways. And if you've been impacted by Buddha Dharma, if you've been impacted by Khenser Geshe Wandak and His Holiness the Dalai Lama's teachings, then you have this personal relationship with all of these beings and will in all of your lives until you're enlightened be connected to them. We must solidify this connection. All of these beings are so happy with us right now because we're actually doing something about our problem. Normally we just go out and create more problems, thinking it will be the solution to our problem. And here we are, doing something that will actually be the solution to all of our problems. Now we start to think about not only our problems. We recognize that every sentient being has all of these problems. We know that we have the 8 sufferings and the 6 sufferings and the 3 sufferings, and we want so badly not to. All sentient beings feel the same way and are equally important. What could we possibly do for them right now? We recognize when we get to the 6th step of the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment, when we say, I will take on myself the task of bringing all sentient beings to a state of happiness and a freedom from suffering, that we're handicapped and we must become a Buddha in order to do that. So we hold this idea, may I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, but know that the Bodhisattva path requires helping sentient beings and caring for sentient beings and cherishing sentient beings more than ourselves, well before becoming a Buddha. So if we aren't already Bodhisattvas, we try to mimic the Bodhisattva. We try to do what we can do to help all sentient beings so that these mental activities that we're engaging in will eventually help us ripen into the real thing. So now imagine that because you want happiness and all sentient beings want happiness, and the only way to get to ultimate happiness is to engage in the Dharma, to achieve the wisdom arisen from hearing, contemplation or analysis and meditation, we think, what could we do right now for all sentient beings in our mind? So now we imagine that we bring them all here. Imagine that you have infinite hands that grab every single sentient being, leaving none out. Even imagining the beings that you're not so sure exist. And if they do exist, then when you become a bodhisattva, you will connect to all of them. Because a Buddha has as his or her object of observation of their love and compassion all sentient beings. So by imagining that we're helping all sentient beings, we're leaving little seeds in our mind to be able to actually do that later. So imagine now we have infinite hands grabbing all the hell beings, 8 hot hells, 8 cold hells, and the surrounding hells, the hungry ghost beings. Imagine we're grabbing all of the animals, all human beings, all the demigods and gods, however you need to imagine them. Just imagine that you're doing it. Now imagine that all sentient beings are here with you as the basis of your field of bodhicitta. And imagine that the entire merit field is in the space in front of you, so full of happiness, so impressed with the fact that finally there's no bickering and arguing. All sentient beings are together with one common purpose: to achieve fearlessness and bliss. And this is all the Gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas want, for us to achieve that. The Buddhas have it. The Buddhas don't need anything for themselves. They just have this wish, this want for us to be able to experience what they have. And the way we experience it is to do the things that they've done. And here we are doing it. And imagine that they're so happy and proud. Now, during this auspicious time, Khenso Geshe Wandak gave his final teachings a year ago in a few weeks, when he passed away on March 6th. And we now know that there's a beautiful stupa being built for Khenso Rinpoche, where his remains and incense and prayers and holy other objects and jewels and so forth will all be contained within this stupa, and for auspicious reasons. So we always stay connected to the Lama. We'll read the Essence of Dependent Origination Sutra, where we find the mention of a stupa and so forth. Okay. The Noble Mahayana Sutra, Dependent Arising. Homage to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Thus did I hear at one time the Blessed One was in the realm of the 33 gods, seated on the throne of Indra. With him were great hearers, such as Venerable Ashvajit, Bodhisattva Mahasattvas, such as Noble Maitreya, Noble Avalokiteshvara, and Vajrapani, who were adorned with immeasurable precious qualities, as well as various gods, such as Great Brahma, who is the Lord of the Saha world, Narayana, the great Ishvara Sakra, who is the chief of the gods, and Pankasika, who is the king of the Gandharvas. On that occasion, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara rose from his seat, and having draped his upper robe over one shoulder, knelt down with his right knee on the peak of Mount Meru. His palms together, he then bowed towards the Blessed One and addressed these words to him. Blessed One, these gods all really wish to build a stupa. Now that they are present in this entourage, please teach them the Dharma in such a way so that the merit of Brahma will increase and the merit of monks, nuns, laymen, and laywomen will increase, such more than that of all types of beings in the worlds of the gods, Maras, and Brahma, including renunciates and Brahmins. At this, the Blessed One spoke the verses of dependent arising. Oe Dharma Edo Bravavat Edum Dejan Datta Gato Yavadat Dejan Jayo Niroda Evam Vadi Mahajramana Yeswa. All phenomena arise from causes. The causes are taught by the Tathagata. The cessation of causes as well is taught by the great seer. Avalokiteshvara is like this. This dependent arising is the Dharmakaya of all the Buddhas. One who sees dependent arising sees the Tathagata. Avalokiteshvara, if a faithful son or daughter of noble family builds in a remote place a stupa the size of a gooseberry fruit, with a central pillar the size of a needle, and a parasol the size of a flower of the bakula tree, and inserts this verse of dependent arising, which is the Dharma Dhatu, he or she will generate the merit of Brahma. When such persons pass on from here and die, they will be reborn in the world of Brahma, and when they pass on from there and die, they will be reborn with fortunes equaling those of the gods of the pure abodes. After the Blessed One had spoken these words, the hearers, bodhisattvas, the whole assembly in the universe of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised this teaching. We see this profound mantra that encompasses all of the four seals, encompasses all of the Four Noble Truths. Amazing. All composite things are impermanent. All contaminated things are in the nature of suffering. All things are in the nature of emptiness and selflessness. Nirvana, or transcending sorrow, is peace. This is the superior truth of suffering. This is the superior truth of origin. This is the superior truth of cessation. This is the superior truth of path. We're so blessed that we've heard any of these things. We're making use and taking the essence of this human basis by understanding these things, because it is the understanding of dependent origination that is the antidote to the origin of our suffering. Now I'll recite the Heart Sutra, which contains the meaning of the final meaning of dependent origination. The dependent origination of causes and conditions and wholes and parts, and the dependent origination of mere designation, things coming in through the power of designation and label, existing through the power of label only. We find this deep meaning presented in the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge, the second turning of the Wheel of Dharma, that's so easy to misinterpret. We have to study and study its meaning and not get lost in what looks like potentially nihilism because we don't know the meaning of the Heart Sutra. That explicit meaning the Buddha is getting at of the lack of inherent existence of phenomena, but the subjective existence merely through the power of label. And the implicit teaching on the 5 paths that are the only paths that will allow us to achieve complete Buddhahood and remove the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience. We're so fortunate to have been given teachings on this Heart Sutra. So fortunate to be able to have heard Jayan Gopi Lodru's commentary on this, so that we know that this Heart Sutra truly means the 5 paths and the emptiness of inherent existence of those 5 paths. The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajnaparamita, saw in this way. He saw the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita should see in this way, seeing the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness, emptiness also is form, emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics, there is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity and no purity, there is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no I dhatu up to no mind dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind consciousness dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of prajnaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the 3 times by means of prajnaparamita fully awaken to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of prajnaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering should be known as truth, since there is no deception. The prajnaparamita mantra is said in this way. Teata om gate gate paragate parasangate bodhiso. Thus Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajnaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family. Thus it is, O son of noble family, thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajnaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. So we see, if we want to attain, transcend falsity, and attain complete nirvana, whether it's an abiding nirvana or a non-abiding nirvana, meaning the abiding nirvana of a hearer, solitary realizer, the Hinayana vehicle, or a non-abiding nirvana that the Buddha achieves, we have to understand the emptiness of inherent existence of all phenomena, while being able to posit existence in some way, not nihilism. So we work our way on this road, this path, towards this understanding of compatibility of emptiness and functionality. And this is what we have, this is that middle of the road solution we have to find that doesn't have permanent substantiality, but also isn't nothing, isn't nihilism. We have to see the functionality of karma and its results, whilst understanding that karma and its results are empty of inherent existence. And this is the view of the Buddha that allows one to achieve nirvana and nothing else. We have to achieve this final view, where we see the emptiness of self of person and emptiness of self of phenomena, and know that view according to great masters like Nagarjuna, Chandrakirti, Buddhapalita, Shantideva. We have to know the emptiness that they speak of. And we can, because we have this human basis with a mind that's able to meet with these teachings, because we have these 8 leisures. Kala jupe ne jo damba ne nguje duju nga yi du do jen dru babo lama yi bujin zi ne zong gandro zola jatzelo aga samara de chandara samara ebe aga samara de Aga samara ta shandara samara ya be de ata on gate gate parasangate bodhi so baba gonja sanji gaye dembe doji she lobo doji meba doji shewa doji jragi baji mede bejanda je den goriya so geren don ja je je shewa dan midun be jandandra wa dan ton ban jon jin bon son son joji tashi de jan den da de le jo. Okay, so now we'll make a mandala offering as a request for teaching, imagining we're offering this perfect place, ground smooth like lapis lazuli, etc. Beautiful, incredible realm, world. Imagine we and all sentient beings are requesting this teaching. Imagine that this perfect world that we're offering has perfectly happy beings, enjoying it. All the gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas, this is the kind of offering they want. Imagine we're offering our practice. This is the highest offering we can give. We find this in Milarepa's teachings. Milarepa didn't have stuff, but he had his practice to offer. And this is the highest practice. This is all the gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas want. They can't use gold. They have no use. We make these offerings because we want to accumulate, and we know these objects of offering are so incredible and deserving of these objects we offer, but it's really our practice that concerns them. That's what they want to know about. Lord Atisha always asked people, is your mind virtuous? How's your mind today? Not how are you today? Not how is your wife or husband today? How is your mind? So we offer our mind in practice. That's the meaning. That's what Lord Atisha meant by that question. Yeah, all this other stuff, that's great, but how is your mind? Is your mind virtuous today? And we're so fortunate. We've been looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment to find out what virtue is, what non-virtue is. So if we know, we can answer that question. If we look at the mirror of the Dharma and someone says, how is your mind? And if it's someone like Lord Atisha asking us that question, we'll know exactly what they're asking. Is your mind grasping at yourself, a person, and phenomena as being more truly established than yesterday, or less truly established than yesterday? Is your mind more loving and compassionate than yesterday? Or does it have more harmful thoughts in it? More violent thoughts in it? That's what that question means. How is your mind today? How is your mind this moment compared to a moment before, an hour before? This is when we start to really practice, when we're looking at our mind on an ongoing looking at our mind. That sort of mindfulness Shantideva talks about. And in the 8 verses of mind training, whenever a disturbing emotion arises in my mind, endangering myself and others, may I quickly do something about it, firmly face and avert it. That's what the Lojong, the mind training teachings, are talking about. Atisha, the great mind training master, how's your mind? Are there things arising in it that you need to get rid of quickly? Are you firmly facing and averting those things? Or are you allowing them to grow with inappropriate attention? That's the question that Lord Atisha was asking. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, and you would say listening to the Dharma, May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sanje chedan zoji chenan la janju badu dani jasuchi dagi chushe jipe sonanji drola penche sanje drubar jo sanje chedan zoji chenan la janju badu dani jasuchi dagi chushe jipe sonanji drola penche sanje drubar jo sanje chedan zoji chenan la janju badu dani jasuchi dagi chushe jipe sonanji drola penche sanje drubar jo. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the Immaculate Dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha, Gautama, I pay homage. Okay. I hope everybody's great. I hope everybody's mind is virtuous. I hope we've gotten to a place now that's more realistic, that's allowing us to think about the Dharma and think about what the Buddha really intended for us. The Buddha, it's nice to be able to just have faith in something, but the Buddha never intended that. The Buddha does not wash away our sins with water, doesn't take away our suffering with his or her hands, can't give us his or her realizations. Tara can't come here and be like, okay, Jeff, I got you. I'm going to give you my realizations. Can't. But they teach the truth of suchness, and that's how we're liberated. We have to investigate these teachings ourselves. We have to cut and rub them, as the Buddha told us to. You should cut and rub everything that I'm saying. Rely on my words. Oh, Jeff's great. Okay, fine. But does he know what he's talking about? You have to rely upon authentic sources and cut and rub the teachings. If you were going to go buy something, think about how much effort when you want to buy something expensive goes in. Okay, I need a new TV. Okay, let me Google what's the best TV. Do I need HD? I don't even know what they are anymore, but there's a lot. There's a lot of different I remember we were like, maybe we should get a TV that we can just go right on the internet with. So we can, I can go on my classes and it's real big and so forth. Then you say, okay, I'm going to go out and I'll just get one. No, you go, you Google, you see top 10 for price, top 10 for value. There's every possible thing that you check to buy a dumb TV. Now we're talking about all of our lives going forward and our eventual fearlessness and bliss. And if we don't get it right, we're not going to achieve fearlessness and bliss. So if you want a good TV, what do? You find out what's the best TV. If you want fearlessness and infinite happiness, what do? You find out exactly how to make that occur, because there's a lot of philosophies within Buddhism. And a lot of them are stepping stones, and some of them aren't even really Buddhism. They're just wrong. But how would we be able to differentiate? Because the person smiles a lot, talks nicely, looks exotic. Oh, it's Asian, it has to be good? Is that how we would check it? We would stand from 100 feet away and just point at 100 different TVs and hope that our finger landed on the one that was the best TV? No, that's not what we ever do. We don't do that. We look and you check and we make sure and but then when it comes to spirituality, we're so prone to rabbit's foot. We're so prone to just hoping there's something out there that seems like it's going to be able to just transform us because it looks good. Because it should have some power to do that. But we know the Buddha doesn't even have the power to just fix us. Like, here you go, you're fixed. So we can't, and if all external appearances are projections we're putting details on, we're deciding whether they make us happy or make us feel bad based on us grasping at them as having ness. How can we then choose our Dharma that way? Now, many of us got very lucky. I got very lucky that I landed, maybe our karmas are all amazing, that we landed in a lane of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and we landed in a lane with Khyentse Geshe Wandak. That wasn't my first lane at all. I went through a lot of lanes that just didn't seem to make sense. It was kind of like, it doesn't seem to feel exactly right. I mean, I looked at a lot of things. Buddhism was the last thing that I looked at. But did I really cut and rub it before I threw myself into it? No, I kind of dumb lucked it in this case. But now we're all here now, and we can talk about this. So we have to say, is that really the way to do it? Do I really know what Khyentse Geshe Wandak was saying was correct? How? If I haven't cut and rub anything. We have such a personal relationship with Rinpoche. So he feels so personal and correct to us. But Buddha Shakyamuni said, don't trust me, who is Rinpoche's teacher. So we have to make sure that we're checking. Now, I've been checking a lot, and I haven't found anything incorrect that Khyentse Geshe Wandak has presented us with. And I've been doing some real checking. And I did some real checking after about a decade in. It started to check more and more and more. And now I'm checking. I'm checking my checking. And checking's checking. And I'm finding that, was there anything incompatible Rinpoche taught with the exact views? No. Is there anything incompatible in my mind with what Rinpoche taught? Yes. Absolutely. My mind doesn't work in a way that tallies with reality. Rinpoche told us about reality and told us the things that we need to do. But am I doing them all? Am I observing things in a way that tallies with reality? So if the answer is no, well, you can just check. Do you have attachment? Do you get angry? Check. Does everything look like it's really here, the way it appears? And do you think it probably is? I mean, is that your go-to? Is your go-to, yeah, they really look like they are this way, but they're not. Is that what happens the minute you look at everything? Do you just know they're not? Or does it take a while for you to kind of unravel anger? Oh, okay, then using reasons and, trying to get yourself back to a kind of stasis? Because it's not the right way isn't our go-to in our minds. It's never been since beginningless time. 100 years, 110 years, 80 years, 60 years, however long we get to stay around here. I'm going to be 50. I'm 50, so I know I'm here now. So however long. But now we're talking beginningless time. We've been wrong. And I'll be wrong again if I don't do something about it. And wrong, unfortunately, causes 8 suffering, 6 suffering, 3 suffering. It causes that. No, dogs can't have coffee. Oh, boy. Okay, come on. Get down. Good girl. So we have to check our minds. We have to check the teachings. We're going through all kinds of tenet systems now. And to be able to, and also I'm studying in another group, studying something that is really mixed up in some ways. It doesn't matter what it is or who it is. It's really mixed up, but it seems really like a good view. And it's based on the third turning of the wheel in the mind only, but not really just mind only. Mind only mixed with a little tantra, mixed with what seems to me a little samkhya, non-Buddhist school, mixed with a little Madhyamika Svatantrika, autonomy school. And man, if it was correct, it sounds really good. So I have to check my mind and see, how good does it sound? How good does inherent existence of at least a little something sound? Sure, I can, tear so many things to pieces. Arya Davis says if you have a doubt about some, whether things inherently exist or not, that doubt alone tears samsaras to in pieces. I can tear some of it up, but am I tearing it all up? Do I think there's something there finally that I can hold on to? Is there some mind there that I can hold on to? Or some Buddha nature that inherently exists that's like a soul? We have to check this. We have to check and say, is our Buddha nature inherently existent? Do we think that? Do we think that it does not depend upon causes and conditions and labels and so forth? Do we think that ultimately, from a final point, is there this thing that's there that is me? Because now I said me. And as soon as I say me, we have a problem, unless it's meaning conventional. If I think that there's this me, this final me, then I don't understand non-affirming negative. I don't understand the negative phenomena that is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no, etc. And great beings have written great things that serve as our foundation that don't end there, that don't take it far enough. And then there's other things that take it way too far, and you end up in nihilism. So we find that when we look at schools and views, and we look at the final thoughts of beings within even the Nalanda tradition, we look at Dharmakirti. We say Dharmakirti. Does Dharmakirti have the Madhyamika Prasangika view on paper? Absolutely not. Basubandhu? Baba Vega. How about Baba Vega? We have to really know that incredible beings. Now, what view they actually held, they only know. And we know that the Buddhas teach to scope, because there's a variety of beings with varieties of minds that need varieties of medicine at different points to take that staircase from the way everyone agrees wrongly things are, to a little less wrong and a little more less wrong to finally not wrong at all. And if we're in this place where there's a little wrong left, what does Sachen Konganipo say? If you're attached to this life, you're not a spiritual practitioner. Okay, fine. If you're attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. All right, fine. If you're attached to your own self-interest, there's no bodhicitta. Okay, fine. If there is grasping, you don't have the view. That really is the liberating path. We cannot achieve freedom from suffering if we don't have the view. And if we grasp at anything, if we think there's some final me somewhere, we don't have the view. Even if we have compassion, it says in the text that we could, practice bodhicitta for eons without the view. It's not going to liberate us. There's only one thing that will liberate us, meaning allow us to achieve nirvana, an abiding nirvana, or a non-abiding nirvana. And that's the correct view of emptiness, the correct view of reality, the correct view of suchness, the lack of inherent existence, the lack of intrinsic existence, the lack of objective existence. These are all synonyms. The lack of true establishment. This peacefulness that all phenomena possesses. As Jeffrey Hopkins was talking about the other day, this quiescence, this peace. All phenomena are equal in that they all share this emptiness of self. What does that mean? How could that be? How could that be while it still works? That's the real trick. So today, I want to read more of the seventh Dalai Lama. Seventh Dalai Lama wrote a beautiful, beautiful. It's like compared. It's said that the seventh Dalai Lama read the Lama Tsongkhapa's song of spiritual experience, the Lam Rim, the abbreviated stages of the path, the song of his realizations, the smallest Lam Rim, the Lam Rim Dudun, we say. So Lama Tsongkhapa wrote that and showed the whole path within it. Rinpoche gave many teachings on Lam Rim Dudun, abbreviated stages of the path. And then the seventh Dalai Lama, so inspired by it, wrote kind of his song of spiritual experience. And it's called the Song of the Immaculate Path. And I think it's literally called the Song of Brahma, but it doesn't mean Brahma the same way we would think. So it's translated as Immaculate Path in this case. And what's neat about it is that, let me see. Okay, so here, let's look at a little commentary. I think maybe the commentary is actually by Glenn Mullen. In the colophon of this poem, well, let's just look at what it says here. It says the literal translation of the title of the piece is Song of Brahma. However, here the name Brahma is not used to denote the Indian god of this name, believed by Hindus to be the creator of the universe and also a rather good singer and poet, but rather Brahma as Brahmacharya, a path or way characterized by purity and leading to the purified state of enlightenment. So it's interesting, Jeffrey Hopkins had a Sanskrit dictionary out, and he was looking at words and how one word in Sanskrit can mean things that don't even seem to have much to do with each other at all. So we have to be very, very careful when we look at texts and we look at if there's a Sanskrit word in there to see if we know the context and the meaning of it within that. And what's really nice about this text is we keep seeing references to Buddha's previous lives. Before Buddha Shakyamuni was a Buddha, we know we have the Jataka tales, the Rosary of Jataka Stories. It was actually written by Arya Shura, who we learned about, who was originally a non-Buddhist and then, came to debate Aryadeva, and Aryadeva won, chased him down and locked him in the library at Nalanda, right? We learned something like this before. And so Arya Shura wrote the Rosary of Jataka Stories, and then Lama Tsongkhapa started a tradition at the Molam Festival of reading this, the Jataka Stories. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama continues that tradition of reading these, one or two of these stories kind of as an auspiciousness during that time. So it's still, this tradition is still kind of carried on from Tsongkhapa. I don't know if it ever broke. I'm not a historian at all, but I'm just trying to give you little tidbits of information. And without further ado, let's let the seventh Dalai Lama speak. I may speak as commentary a little bit or not. I don't know. See how I feel as we get to each of the stanzas. I don't want to make any promises one way or another. And let's listen to this beautiful, beautiful piece of work. The Song of the Immaculate Path. Namo Shri Mangura Ye. Homage to the feet of Atisha, Dipamkara, the soul refuge, the peerless navigator who, abiding in the blissful Dharma Dhatu, the spontaneously born and deathless abode, frees countless beings from the limitations of samsara and nirvana. Spontaneous. Remember, we were talking about that a minute ago. It's spontaneous. It's not like, oh, I'm going to go do this or that. It's because of the bodhisattva vow and the bodhisattva path that the Buddha engaged in, that his or her mind spontaneously helps sentient beings. There isn't like a bias that makes them have to work it out like us. They just spontaneously do it. Drawing from Atisha's vast treasury of perfect teachings, the disciple Drone, that's Drone Tongpa, who was a layperson, don't forget this. We were at the Tibet Center, and there was some references made to monks and nuns being the holders of the Dharma. And I said, please don't forget Drone Tongpa. Drone Tongpa, the lay being. Milarepa, lay being. Not normal lay beings, though, right? Not like going to work, and a little different, like highly like yogis, like, who gave up this life, but, didn't take on the monastic vows. So we need to recognize when we say that Drone Tongpa was a lay person, it wasn't like he was like me. So I don't want to infer that. I would like to be like Drone Tongpa. He's one of my heroes. The disciple Drome took the gem of the sublimely blissful path to fill the vase-like minds of beings. O source of countless Buddhas, pray, bestow upon us your transforming powers. So Atisha gave the Lam Rim to Drone. He really trusted Drone Tongpa. It seems so strange, right? There are all these people, all these great practitioners we read about. And Atisha gave this lineage to Drone Tongpa. Not that no one else heard these teachings. Don't mix that up like he pulled Drone Tongpa into a secret room and gave him only, taught him only what the three principal paths were. That's not what it means. It means that all of the integrated paths, all of it in one, were just transmitted to Drone Tongpa. He had all of it. And homage to the omniscient Tsongkhapa, an all-kind Lord of Truth, who although attained to mastery of both the world and beyond, abandoned not the thought of benefit living beings, but from love entered into the scorching pits of samsara. So showing that Lama Tsongkhapa appeared in our world to help. For many lifetimes we have amassed spiritual energy through generosity, discipline, and pure aspiration. Thus has been won the precious human life, this ground from which ultimate goodness can be grown. What did Rinpoche say to us so many times? To get a human basis, you have to have ethics. You have to have the other 5 perfections, practicing them, not realized, because you'd be a Buddha, not perfected, but practice them. And you have to have pure, stainless aspirations through generosity, discipline, and pure aspiration. Thus has been worn this precious human life, this ground from which ultimate goodness can be grown. Take the essence of this human life. We're learning about that Thursday night. The second stanza that Pabonka Rinpoche says starts what you do once you found a teacher. And he says, first you say, a kind of like advice on you should probably do something good with this life that you have. And then the third stanza gets into this is how you start, by practicing the teaching shared in common with beings of small capacity, then medium capacity, then great capacity. More rare is human rebirth than for a blind turtle to put its head through a yoke floating on the ocean, than for a handful of dried peas tossed across the air to stick to a stone wall. So taught the masters of old. I like that one the best. This turtle going through the yoke, like a yoke? You mean like that goes on? It's a little vague, and sometimes like now they'll say donut to make our minds make more sense out of it. But think about this, to stick peas, dry peas tossed in the air that stick to a stone wall, So taught the masters of old. Not impossible, because, it's possible that it could get caught in like a crack in the stone wall, or there was something maybe on your hand that was sticky or something. But not probably if you throw dried peas in the air is it going to stick to stone. it's going to take some serious causes and conditions to make something like that happen. Because we can't posit that it's impossible because we're here. So that's not what they meant. They were just showing us through way of example that, man, this thing that you have, you don't know if you're going to get it again. It's like a flash of lightning in the dark. Difficult to obtain and easily lost, as Tsongkhapa says, in the foundation of all good qualities. Most wondrous is this opportunity found but once. Sound familiar? The vessel of 8 freedoms and 10 endowments. Sound familiar? We know Tsongkhapa didn't put the 10 endowments because Shakyamuni's not in our world. We went over that on Thursday nights. We're not going to go over it right now. We have the outer, but the inner qualities, but those outer qualities. Buddha Shakyamuni's not in our world with the students. So we can look at what that means, the 10 endowments, but we see in the source of all my good, foundation of all good qualities, Babunka Rinpoche says, Lama Tsongkhapa said just the 8 leisures, because he knew that some of the endowments, in a literal sense, aren't present. Figuratively, we can say the guru is the Buddha, and then we can clean it all up, and that the teachings are still being taught, right? But when we want to debate things like this, we need to be very careful. Lama Tsongkhapa was very careful with his words. I'm learning to be more careful with my answers in the Nalanda Master's Course. Geshe Dorje Damdu is so kind to not let one ambiguity flow from your mouth in an answer. Because if you do, then the opponent or the person who's listening, not even opponent, the person listening, could say, well, what about that? You know, that doesn't make sense. So you have to really hone in on what exactly it means. And Tsongkhapa was really careful. So that's why he said, this human life of leisure, I found just this once. He didn't say leisure and endowment. He mentions it at other places, of course, but where he can expand upon it. Yet impermanent like a rainbow. So I have this, I'm here, but impermanent like a rainbow. It comes and it goes. So beautiful while it's there. All its beautiful colors and radiance. Potential to make so many people feel just in awe of it. But it, just like that, the rainbow's gone. For who can be certain that even today consciousness will not leave the body? Death will come and nothing can stop it. Lifespan's not fixed. We don't know when it's going to happen. And when it happens, the only thing that can help us is the Dharma. Those 3 things. Death will come and nothing can stop it. We don't know when it's going to happen, and the only thing that can help us is Dharma. We die, young and old alike, and in the end, who meets not with death? Even in the blissful abodes of the desire gods, where incautious minds by attachment are bound, descent follows unbearable suffering when signs of death appear, and the gods of the heavens of form and formlessness nowhere approach the path of liberation. The effects of their samadhi and virtue deplete, and again they wander through death's gates. In the lesser heavens, fighting gods chop at each other's limbs. In the hot hells, denizens boil, burn, and are pierced with weapons. And in the cold hells, their bodies crack with pus and explode. From hunger, thirst, fatigue, and terror, ghosts continually suffer. Animals eat one another, are worked, beaten, slaughtered, and not knowing spiritual methods, live with the continual threat of misery. Bad karma and delusion, evil spirits riding upon the horse of mind, shaking the very thread of life, thus helplessly directed, this life is made short, and the next, destitute in this degenerate aid, light is shrouded in the darkness. So we know about this in this life right now, and we can study it. But what happens if we pass away and we're a worm? We'll be shrouded in this even darker ignorance than we all have if we have the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience. Even darker than what the mind. We all have that, but it becomes, the ignorance is even darker because our minds are stupider. Our minds are duller. Practice the 10 virtues. So then it says, with back turned toward the guru, and the three jewels, and lifestyle conflicting with the laws of karma, the land fills with the habits of barbarians and superstitions just like wax grow. Practice of the 10 virtues is like sandalwood, yet these days the people burn black coals of vulgarity. By meaningless, transient diversions are the masses deceived. What a great line. Yet these days the people burn black coals of vulgarity. By meaningless, transient diversions are the masses deceived. We're so diverted. External appearances. I love that. I hate that. I need this. Transient diversions. Diverting us from fearlessness, the goal, and bliss. It's keeping us. It's diverting us from the path. And that diversion just causes suffering. Even in the diversion, when we get the thing we like, we have that suffering of change that takes place. By meaningless transient diversions are the masses deceived, their faces turned from things of lasting joy. Lasting joy. We run after suffering of change all day and night. The Buddha's interested in lasting joy, permanent bliss, a bliss that will always be bliss. A permanent absence of non-bliss, if you want to be technical. Permanent absence of non-bliss. Anyone out there who wants to clap? Struck by the cold touch of attachment, hostility, and confusion, the lotus garden of spirituality each day withers more. Watching this everywhere happen, who with sense is not saddened? On the seas of existence, one rises and falls on waves of suffering. Even the worldly pleasures we taste are like mixed food with poison, destroying the very life of goodness and joy. So interesting. That suffering of change. Everything, all contaminated happiness is suffering because it has that self-destruct mechanism in it. Mixed with poison, the 7th Dalai Lama says. That suffering is the very method by which liberation is attained, they say. And they take the robes and talk religion, but even while they preach 5 poisons rule their minds, qualities they feign and faults they hide, corruption can thrive anywhere, it would seem. So just because you've become a monastic, 7th Dalai Lama saying, how's your mind? That's what really matters. How's your mind? Oh, lay people, oh, monastics, how's your mind? Is it corrupt? Are you pretending to have good qualities and you really don't? Are you hiding faults that you really have so no one can tell? Hiding them in a costume? I've seen that. Seemingly. Seemed like it. I've seen it in my life. I've seen it in others' lives. We have to check. We have to be really careful to check. We can respect, but not rely. Important. We can have respect because all sentient beings deserve respect. But we need to check things very carefully before we just hop in and say, oh yeah, this is who I want to follow. This is good. This is fine. They're good enough. They can come do the puja. We need to check. We understand impermanence and suffering, they state, but today we will do this and tomorrow that. Comes out of their next very breath. Oh, you who grasp for permanence lost in an endless cycle of planning, how will your time pass? How will your time to pass beyond imperfection ever come? At present, they cannot endure even the slightest pain, yet it could come to pass that living in unconscious abandon, they will end up in hell. Blind action, the rope which binds them to the hollows of the world. I've opened the wisdom eye, or I love others more than myself, they claim. But when they see others' happiness, the snake tongue of jealousy darts. Trying to save another, they sink the two. I call them butchers dressed like men of peace. Whatever I see is seen in the light of the emptiness wisdom, they announce. yet they cannot bear even slight upsets and become lost like owls in inner fires of explosive frustration. Theirs is not the path of freedom. I'm a tantric master, they proudly boast. Yet I see them kill the root of tantric practice, the vows and sacred pledges of the tantric way. They adorn their bodies with the costume of a yogi, but their hearts are sterile like a fruitless tree. Therefore, the root of all attainments depend on correctly following a spiritual friend, a master, but rely upon a qualified guru. One with control, peace of mind, ever excellence, able even to die for him, be constantly aware of his kindness and make him the offering of practicing just as taught, with the certainty that any faults that appear are reflections of your own negativity, practice with unshakable confidence. Now again, saying qualified guru. This means we really need to check. We're not going to just see everything as pure and it's our mind making that person behave in that way. Everything's fine. No. Check. Do they have those 10 qualities? The Mahayana Sutra Alankara that Maitreya talks about. And I'm not claiming to have those qualities. I'm like a professor talk, we look at Lama, we look at teacher, we can look at it in different ways. Teacher, who's like a person giving a talk, like in a, professor would, or teacher in terms of the perfection vehicle, who we would say, oh, we could put them in the merit field, or teacher in terms of looking at them like a Buddha in Tantra. But that's not my aim of this class, to have you look at me as anything other than someone who can provide information that was provided to me by what I think is a Buddha, Khyentse Geshe Wandak, and His Holiness the Dalai Lama. A mind blowing over a sandalwood garden indeed smells sweet. Blowing over shit, it smells foul. Likewise, be one's friend high or be low. One's life is affected accordingly. Choose wisely. We really have to be careful with who we surround ourselves with. It says right in the Lam Rim, if you surround yourselves with people of lower qualities, you'll go lower. If they're only equal to you, you'll stay the same. But if they're greater than you, if you surround yourself with those kind of beings, you'll get better. It's all just ripped out of Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment. The seventh Dalai Lama was so cool in that he could speak the common man and woman's language and shock you at times with it, because he's so profound. His teachings, his students were just great Madhyamika philosophers, and he was such a great philosopher, yet he was willing to speak that common language to help us to kind of shake up, wake up. Even the creator God Brahma, even himself bound in chains of obscuration, is hardly a worthy object of refuge, but worthy are the Buddhas, who have generated all excellences and have transcended all flaws. The Buddha has all excellent qualities and has abandoned all negative qualities, has abandoned the afflictive obstructions, so therefore is fearless, and abandoned the obstructions to omniscience, so therefore is blissful. Generated all excellence. There's no perfect. That's what that means. All excellence means perfect. And worthy is the Dharma taught by them, as well as the realized Sangha following in their wake. But rely upon them wholeheartedly and not on empty words alone. Live in accord with the teachings. It shouldn't just be words. Just say it, do it. Having raised the mind's eye to enlightenment in the presence of these three precious jewels, uncover all karmic residue left from previous negativity and failings. Engage the four opponent forces that uproot the tree of darkness. Whenever a disturbing emotion arises in my mind, firmly face and avert it. If it arises and I continue it and I act non-virtuously, apply the 4 opponent powers as quick as possible. We've gone over that so many times. Look at the shortcomings of samsaric existence and of delusion and compulsive karma, the sources of all suffering. The mind is staggered. Develop confidence in practice and strive in the ways bringing freedom. In countless previous lives, all living beings have again and again been our parents and have shown us great kindness. Take upon your shoulders the load of repaying them and think only of what brings good to others. 7-point cause and effect, folks. So many times Rinpoche went over that, and now we can look at books and know what they're talking about. We can just pick it out. It just like yells at us through the book. Subdue attachment and aversion and instead dwell within an attitude moist with the love that looks at all beings with pleasure, and compassion that wishes to see all beings freed from misery, and in the mind of universal responsibility that carries the weight of the welfare of the world. All sentient beings have been our mother, remembering their kindness, wishing to repay their kindness, love through the force of attraction, great compassion, the extraordinary attitude. You're saying, I'll carry the weight of the world. I'll take upon myself the task of freeing them all. Oh, I'm not a Buddha. I need to become a Buddha. And then somehow, if you do it enough, you become a bodhisattva from those 6 causes. You say, oh, I've made this pure determination and I can't do anything about it until I'm a Buddha. I got to become a Buddha. May I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. Break off from the mentality that holds self above others. Generate Bodhi mind, which yearns for enlightenment for the sake of all, and have a firm will to train in the ways of the mighty bodhisattvas. We see exchanging self and others snuck in. Snuck it in. So we have the 2 lineages that will allow us to become bodhisattvas. The lineage of the 7-point cause and effect passed down from Maitreya to Asanga, and that extensive deeds lineage, and the profound view lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni and Manjushri and Nagarjuna that teaches the equalizing and exchanging self with others practice to generate the mind of bodhicitta. We see the 7th Dalai Lama being so skillful to just break off from the mentality that holds self above others, putting others' needs before your own. That step that goes then you see the great kindness of all if you're making it big, the big equalizing and exchanging self with others points that turns into bodhicitta. And we see that we can combine those practices by looking at all sentient beings. Anyway, we can combine those practices. Let the 7th Dalai Lama speak. With the key of generosity, bold and pure, spring the lock most difficult to open, the tightness of the heart. Train in detachment, which gives whatever is needed. The benefits, so will give unbiasedly, whatever is needed to anyone. Not attached to friends, not hating enemies. Being able to equally be of benefit. Spring the lock most difficult to open, the tightness of the heart, that biased attitude. The benefits of the generous mind excel rebirth the benefits of the generous mind excel rebirth as the god of wealth, for they never end. Develop fearless inner strength, able to give even flesh, bones, and marrow to anyone. Wow, imagine being able to get to that place. Non-biased, okay, so we're starting there. Okay, I don't have any bias. And now I'm willing, if I see, through skillful means, I see this is what would really benefit them, I'd be willing to do that. Now, I don't know how much that's really going to happen, but it's a mental state where you would get to where you'd say, if that's what I'd be willing to do, their needs are more important than mine. This is what a bodhisattva thinks like. We see Aryadeva, who gave his eye on the way to go debate Aryashura, and then regretted it for a moment and had obstacles happen because of it. Okay. Think, may I perfect generosity just as the Buddha did in past lives? And now we get into the past lives of Buddha. And we can look at who are all these people? Who was Buddha when he was as Peljide, Jampitu, Sunyor. Here we go. We got more sentient beings here. Sunyor. Dao. And various animal incarnations. So we see the stories when the Buddha was a bodhisattva rabbit. Rinpoche told us this story, and he hops into the pot to give the god the... He's like, oh, you can cook me and eat me. He's the teacher of the animals. We can look at that story another time. So Rinpoche was so kind to us, was he not? The day after Rinpoche passed, I could have read this and I know what this is talking about. Yes, I've taken 70 classes with Geshe Dorje Damdu and learning, online and watching Jeffrey Hopkins and Lama Ellen Wallace and studying with Geshe Aga and studying with Tenzin Mala Adrinla, asking her questions. But wow, what a precious gift Kensur Geshe Wandak gave us. May he return swiftly. May we meet with him swiftly so he can continue to just cleanse our minds of the self-grasping ignorance that leads to this self-cherishing attitude. When he cultivated the bodhisattva ways by dedicating wealth, body, and even his very life to the well-being of the world, we saw Rinpoche do that. That's all he cared about, was the well-being of us, our well-being. He put himself in non-well-being places. We know he did. And even when circumstances weren't the way they necessarily should have been, he had such great compassion and love and non-bias. So clear. Work day and night on the elephant of the unaware mind. We see that poster of how you would get shamatha. There are those stages where you see the elephant and the monkey and all these different things, and the monk chasing, trying to get it. I don't know if you've seen that. I think it was drawn by Dorje Tang Trijung Rinpoche, one of Rinpoche's teachers. But we see this 9 stages of shamatha, how you would get it. And we see this elephant that's, of the mind. And it talks about, in Shantideva's Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, a normal elephant couldn't do anywhere near the amount of damage running through a room that the elephant of our crazed mind could do to everything. So here it is. Here's that poster. Strike it with sharp hooks of attentive mindfulness. You see the monk with a hook trying to get the elephant. He has like a thing. He's trying to hook it. And the thought of transcending negativity. Guard self-discipline as you would the pupils of your eyes. Hold on. We got a little treat for today. You see it? You getting it? As Geshe Dorje Damdu would say. You see it. You see it. I don't know. I can't see the screen, so hopefully I'm showing it to you. Did I show it to you? Yes. Okay. So this is it. This is it. This is what I'm talking about. The 9 stages of shamatha. So Trijung Rinpoche, obviously, knew of all of these things to draw this picture. We're all studying the same thing. We have no excuses whatsoever. We don't have any reason to say, I can't do this because I don't have the right material. Oh, these lamas in the land of the snows. No, we have this material. We're talking. I think a lot of you know exactly as I read these lines. They pop out at you too. And when at least I give you a little remember? You're like, oh yeah, they pop out. They pop right out. And the thought of transcending negativity, guard self-discipline as you would the pupils of your eyes. Self-discipline is the chief of causes of both high rebirth and enlightenment. Therefore, spiritual seekers always practice it, as related in the biographies of past bodhisattvas. Think, may I perfect self-control, just as Buddha did in previous lives. Buddha's just like us. Buddha had this Buddha nature. This mind that could mature in previous lives, just like we do. And he did it. Buddha Shakyamuni just did it. Just did it. Just do it. Like, just do it. What a great slogan for Buddhism. Just do it. Don't talk about it. Just do it. And in previous lives, Buddha was Loma Katu Chen Golung Matrupa, never staining personal integrity with imperfect actions. So these are obviously stories of when he was a bodhisattva, pure ethical discipline. When others spitefully abuse you and when physical and mental trials rain down, know that it is only your own ripening karma and stand firm in unmoving patience. What does Shantideva say to do? When things get hot and heavy, if you can't act compassionately, at least don't act out. Remain like a piece of wood. Such great advice. Just shut up. Shut your mouth. Don't react. Remain like a piece of wood. Unless you, of course, like people spitefully abusing you in mental and physical trials, then don't remain like a piece of wood and create more trials for yourself in the future. But on the best of armors, patient, strong, and steady, harmful weapons of torment no longer can touch you, and you gain rebirth with a beautiful form. Teach yourself to be patient. Think, may I attain perfect patience, the most sublime asceticism, the capacity to endure challenges to body and even life, just as the Buddha did in previous lives as Zopa Mawa, Jelpu Gedon, and Zau Bumo. Take up joyous perseverance, which when engaged in meditation or when working for the good of the world, knows untiring joy alone, even should the body fall to dust. All spiritual realizations lie in the palm of the hand. It's in your hands. You're the one who matures your mind. I can't mature your mind. Buddha can't mature your mind. Kensur Geshe Wandak couldn't mature your mind. Standing next to Kensur Geshe Wandak doesn't mature your mind. Sitting next to him for 20 years, it doesn't just come. It's from hearing it, help mature my mind and practicing it. All spiritual realizations lie in the palm of your hand and with joyous effort are easily attained. So if you put in effort, it's easy to attain. I don't know how easy. I think he's being a little bit silly. I don't know. Doesn't seem so easy. Not for this person who's really trying, been trying, and even when trying, found myself how could I be behaving this way? Decade into studying Buddhism really, really well, knowing Buddhism really, really well, and seeing myself just acting like an idiot, acting like a fool. It's not easy, and you shouldn't be so hard on yourself. But you should be a little hard on yourself. It's like, don't be hard on yourself, but be hard on yourself. This is the middle way. It's a difficult dance, but one we really have to do. We have to know how to be honest with ourselves. We have to look in the mirror of the Dharma, but know that we're not bodhisattvas, and that we don't have renunciation, and that we see ordinary appearances the way we see them, as having independent existence from their own side. Permanent, unitary, singular, independent, autonomous, substantial. So be easy on yourself while trying to fix it. And if in the midst of being an idiot, be an idiot, but keep working on yourself. And maybe you'll unidiot. I know that in my case, in times in my life, which I would look back on and be embarrassed by, the only thing that unidioted me were the teachings of truth that eventually seeped in enough to become less of a foolish person, very foolish person. But we all do it. We don't have to run after things that society says are bad to be doing it. Running after a brand new car. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It's the same. Addiction to these things as having objective existence and being the things that will make us happy. This addiction. Addiction to car, addiction to house, addiction to drugs, addiction to alcohol, addiction to people. As having this thing that will make us happy when that addiction comes from what is the origin of our suffering. That self-grasping ignorance. All spiritual, I'll read it again. All spiritual realizations lie in the palm of our hand and with joyous effort are easily attained. One literally glows with pure energy and all works quickly reach completion, constantly hold joyous effort. Think, may I strive in the trainings just as Buddha Shakyamuni did. When previously, as a bodhisattva, he practiced joyous effort with vigor. One says, drokun drup, even emptying a great ocean with a tiny turtle shell. Arrest the 5 rivers, obstructing meditation with the dam of the 8 antidotes, and accomplish shamatha, yogic quietude, the power to dwell unwaveringly upon an object of contemplation. What do we do at the beginning of class? What's our focal object? We're trying to be unwavering. We're trying to dwell unwaveringly upon an object of contemplation. We want to be able to focus only on that. The power of meditation penetrates to the heart of practice. It brings the joy of mental and physical control and bestows the 6 miraculous power and 5 eyes of knowledge. Strive, therefore, to perfect meditation. Think, may I practice just as Buddha did in previous lives. He practiced intensely on the mountain near Jewel Island, without attachment to the false comforts and securities of the world, like yesterday's spit, and also like his life as Barum Shingpa, who meditated in a valley for years to attain samadhi. So we're getting the picture here that even the Buddha, it didn't happen overnight. 7th Dalai Lama is pointing out all these stories, when Buddha was this, when Buddha was that, when Buddha was that in a previous life, and that in a previous life, and that in a previous life. We have to have patience. But hurry up. Think, may I practice just as the Buddha did in previous lives. He practiced intensely on the mountain near Jewel Island, without attachment to the false comforts and securities of the world, like yesterday's spit, and also like his life as Barum Shingpa, who meditated in a valley for years to attain samadhi. And endow yourself with it. And it says years to attain samadhi, to attain concentration. Not minutes, not 10 minutes before, during class, the first 5 minutes. Years. So don't be hard on yourself if you're not getting single-pointed concentration. It says the Buddha in previous lives took years and years and years to work on that. And endow yourself with the bonds of wisdom's spiked wheel, which slashes through the darkness, obscuring conventional and ultimate realities. Like the 10th incarnation of Vishnu slings his deadly wheel through Rahula's head. Only wisdom brings sure liberation from the manacles of ego's steely prisons. Through it, Buddha's past, present, and future find enlightenment. Strive, therefore, to perfect wisdom. Think, may I strive just like Buddha in previous lives, as Donkun Drupa, who cultivated wisdom clear, quick, vast, and profound, and Sadak Melong Dong, who engaged in marvelous ways during the course of his training. For long has the mind dwelled under the iron rule of ego's malicious army, destroyer of all joy and happiness. Strike it with the spur of mystic vision, vipassana, and leave behind even the word ego. Vipassana here is referring to wisdom, not the kind that we talk about when the 10-day retreats and so forth. Those are wonderful, but here we're talking about wisdom specifically. Shamatha being calming the mind, calm abiding, and then combined with special insight. So here vipassana is special insight, wisdom. And even leave behind even the word ego. So we have to figure out how the Buddha didn't negate and say there's no self, just said the way that you think the self exists is wrong. So we have to figure out what that means. Because Jeff's talking to you right now, himself. It's not a mirage. It may be at the ultimate level like a mirage, but you couldn't hear a mirage. A mirage wouldn't put sound into your ear you could think about. But like a mirage, sound like a mirage could because of dependent origination. An image reflected in a mirror, a rainbow in the sky. Hold on. Yeah. An image reflected in a mirror, a rainbow in the sky, and a painted image make their impressions upon the mind, but in true nature are other than what they seem. There it is. It's just not what they seem. There's existence, it just isn't what it seems. Look deeply at this world and see an illusion, a hallucination, a magician's creation. In these ways, train the mind in the general past foundation to the secret way, then seek initiation in the esoteric tantras. Generate the vision of the world as mandala and realize the significance of Vajrayana's 2 stages. Look to the words of the masters, pluck the fruit of Buddhahood. Big high stuff we're talking about now. But we should probably start with, the teaching shared in common with beings of small capacity, and make sure that we have the foundation for any of these higher things to work. Think now that I have a human body and mind, have tasted the unsullied Dharma, and am embraced by the fatherly compassion of a spiritual guide. May I practice well and generate never-ending joy within my mind stream. The Master Tsongkhapa, a Dharma Lord who directly perceived thatness, the way things are, mapped out a path perfectly bridging the traditions of both Sutra and Tantra teachings of the Buddha. Synthesizing the thought of masters past, present, and future, his teachings are not a toy for blowing words and bubbles from the mouth. Whoa. But are a golden nugget to practice. May we use them only to pass beyond the devils of inner and outer faults and to tame the stream of our mind. This isn't coffee shop talk that's interesting. This is a golden nugget to change our mind. It's not so we sound smart or can, come up with 100 reasons to negate things. It's so that we can negate the idea in our mind that things inherently exist. By amassing the radiance of goodness done and to be done, he eliminated all veils, hiding the deepest nature of being. And now he dwells in Tashidas as Jambo Nimpo. And dancing an elusive dance fills the universe with emanations. So we read that and we say, was Khyentse Geshe Wandak Lama Tsongkhapa? Is the Dalai Lama? We have to ask this is what this text is saying. What we think is what it is may not be. I'm not saying Khyentse Geshe Wandak was Lama Tsongkhapa. I'm just saying that right here it says, and dancing an elusive dance fills the universe with emanations. May you be moved by his teachings as are gods by a goddess queen. Grasping at duality, fearing birth, illness, age, and death, travelers drift on the waters of life, are slashed by the merciless fangs of horrendous sea monsters, Blow the conch shell of Dharma, which drowns all sorrow, and soar to the jewel isle of enlightenment. By any merits this work may yield, may all spiritual practitioners quickly attain their goals, may they live in accord with refuge in karmic law, and may there be a universal feast of goodness and joy. So you see Buddha Shakyamuni's life story, a little like previous life stories a little bit in there, and how much effort went in life after life after life to figure this out. How much effort we need to put in this life if we want to achieve realizations. We have to study. We have to have the wisdom arisen from hearing and analysis and meditation and studying this text and that text, and not be impatient with realization. A good friend of mine now, we met on the TikTok application. You may even be on here right now. If you are, hey, Bradley. He sometimes, I sent him the text in praise of dependent origination and praise of dependent relativity, I think it's called, by Lobsang Gyatso, the person who founded the dialectic school, one of Rinpoche's best friends. Interesting, who wrote the text. And he was reading it, so now he does shorts and reads different books. So nice, so wonderful. I see you doing it. And he's reading Lama Tsongkhapa, the Lobsang Gyatso's commentary, and it said something like this. I remember it from when I read it, that if you chisel a Buddha out of a stone, it will remain forever. It'll remain for a really long time. Forever's rough in this example. It'll remain as long as it can. It was pretty strong. If you chiseled a Buddha image out of a stone, and then it's compared to painting a Buddha image on a stone. We shouldn't be so quick to try to get to the goal without the work, without the effort. Because the chiseled image, when you chisel a stone and turn it into an image of a Buddha, it takes so much longer, but it really lasts. If you just paint the image real quickly on the outside, if you are satisfied with partial instructions, if you don't have that solid foundation, like the painting on the rock, when enough rain happens, it'll just wash away. But to wash the rock away, it's going to take a whole lot more. We want to have a foundation that's solid, like that image that's been chiseled, and it's the rock is the image, not the painting on the outside of the rock. We can wear costumes. We can have impartial understandings and really not know. We can say all phenomena dependently originate, therefore they're empty, and just say that, say that, and have no clue what it means. No idea. We're saying it. We're like those bubbles, blowing bubbles like the 7th Dalai Lama talks about, that just suddenly go pop. They really don't have any essence. We want to make sure that our Dharma practice has essence, and that's really the whole point of this. I appreciate you all listening so well. I appreciate that you come every single week to hear these teachings and on the different applications. I see there's a couple of people listening to these teachings, and I know that Khenser Geshe Wandak was never satisfied with partial instructions. He never needed to, adorn himself with all this fancy stuff in order to make himself feel better. He was so simple in terms of outward appearances. He didn't need anything. He only cared about his practice day and night. At the end of his life, reading sometimes 1,000 pages a day. And then we find others who claim to be so profound, yet to external appearances, it just looks like, wow, you're really still addicted to samsara so much. You really need all of that stuff in order to identify yourself as you. When Rinpoche didn't need anything. He was like the naked yogi of our house. As soon as you heard his walker walking, you'd have to wonder, who's here right now? Do we have guests? Because Rinpoche didn't care. He walked right through the living room naked. All he cared about was practice. All he cared about was us. He didn't need to put on earrings and adorn himself with jewels and be so fancy. He didn't really even like the Toku system, the system of recognizing reincarnations. He thought it was all just ornaments that people were putting on, possibly. He didn't care if his shirt was pressed. He cared that he was speaking truth and meditating on truth and getting to the bottom of that truth, digging and digging and digging, at least showing us that. He was in a Buddha emanating, which I feel, but what a Buddha is going to emanate and do? They're going to show us what to do. Showing us on a baby monitor at 2 a.m. when we're supposed to be sleeping And I'm always like half not sleeping for 2 years watching Rinpoche. And I'm not just saying that so you like think, oh, wow. I mean, there were witnesses to it. Looking at the baby monitor and seeing him with his flashlight reading texts, telling us, I'm not satisfied. I'm not done. I need to learn. I don't need any of the stuff you all need. I do need batteries when my flashlight runs out so that I can look at my texts again. Boxes of batteries. That's all he needed. So fortunate. Rinpoche, thank you so much. Thank you so much for giving us these teachings. For being right there. The Buddha is so much kinder, we say, than Buddha Shakyamuni the Lama is, because the Lama stands there right next to us, puts up with us, listens to us, hears us, and then thinks, okay, this crazy being, what should I tell them to make them less crazy? Rinpoche just did that for all of us. Yeah. Just so everybody's aware, next Sunday, and I want to include this in our prayers, next Sunday we will not have class. Lorinda Laurie, my wife, significant other, partner, however you want to say it, it has to go for the follow-up MRI for her brain tumor. So far it looks so good, but this is really going to indicate whether or not things are okay. I'm nervous about it. She's nervous about it. Obviously, normal human beings would be. We have every form of spiritual support rooting for us. But we have to realize reality and recognize that death will come and nothing can stop it. We don't know when that's going to happen. And when we start to see conditions that could make that happen, we recognize reality. So next week we won't have class. Strangely, there's an MRI on a Sunday at 10:30 in the morning. So we won't have class next Sunday. And also want to announce that we will be doing a memorial for Rinpoche at 7 p.m. on Monday, March 6th on Zoom. I'm going to try to get as many people as possible. I emailed the Chenrezig Tibetan Buddhist Center with pictures of the stupa. I emailed everybody the pictures. I've talked to people all around the world and country. So anybody who, can come schedule wise and would like to come, please come. And we'll have more details to follow on that. And if you're attached to this life, you're not a spiritual practitioner. Khenser Geshe Wandak certainly wasn't. If you're attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. Khenser Geshe Wandak certainly wasn't. If you're attached to your self-interest, there's no bodhicitta. Rinpoche certainly didn't seem to have self-interest. And if there is grasping, you do not have the view. Rinpoche didn't seem to have grasping. He could articulate the Madhyamika Prasangika view better than most human beings in the world, so well that he and His Holiness talked about it whenever they could. We have to first mimic, parakeet, pretend in a contrived way to do what these great beings do so that we become great beings ourselves. Okay, I'm sorry I'm going to go over in time, but I don't know. It's kind of a false thing. I'm not really sorry. So I don't want to, is what it is. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, and the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I've collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losandrapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate any mistakes that I've made in this teaching, may they be purified through the mantra of Vajrasattva. May Vajrasattva bless us all to purify our minds. May we see Vajrasattva as inseparable from Khenser Geshe Wandak, and all the deities is inseparable from the Guru. All the Yidams is inseparable from the Guru. And may we imagine as we hear this mantra that white light rays and nectar turning into Oms purify our body, dissolving into our crown. Red light rays and nectars turning into red Ahs. Purify our speech, dissolving into the red Ad, our throat, and blue light rays and nectars transforming into blue homes. transforming our mind into pure minds, and it dissolves into our hearts, at the blue home at our hearts. So, Om Benzo Sato Samaya Manipulaya Benzo Sato Zenwajida Dida Meva Zutukai Meva Zubukai Meva Anurag Meva Sarvasiti Me Pracha Sava Kamazuja Mekitam Triam Koro Hum Ha 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 Bhagavan Sarvatata Kata Benzo Mame Moka Benzo Bava Mahasamaya Sapa Ahom Ve. May we always be protected by Paul and Lama Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Galar Jo Rama Jo Jin Jo Long Jong Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Galar Jo Rama Jo Jin Jo Long Jong Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Galar Jo Rama Jo Jin Jo Long Jong Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Galar Jo Rama Jo Jin Jo Long Jong Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Galar Jo Rama Jo Jin Jo Long Jong Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Galar Jo Rama Jo Jin Jo Long Jong Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Galar Jo Rama Jo Jin Jo Long Jong Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Jo Rama Dun Jo Galar Jem Mo Rama Waja Daja Dun Jo Rulu May Lama Tsongkhapa's teachings always remain in this world. Mi me zewe tuchen generasi jeme yeme wombo jame yon debo mali jimsu zaweda kanchen kepi suchen Tsongkhapa lozandrabi jala zoade. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri, and likewise Samantabhadra as well, with whatever dedication is praised as supreme. By all the conquerors who traverse the 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness, all-powerful Avalokiteshvara, Tenzin Yatso. May you stay until samsara's end. And anyone who doesn't know, that's His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Tenzin Gyatso. May we, in all our lives, may be never separated from Kensur Geshe Wandok. May we accumulate whatever we need to and create the causes for this to happen. May we meet with him or her in emanation bodies in regular worlds, or when we become Arya Bodhisattvas. May we meet with him in that beautiful enjoyment body that has with this abode 5 qualities. And when we become Buddhas, may we emanate in whatever form we need to help all sentient beings mature their minds and move forward minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year, towards complete Buddhahood. Thank you. I appreciate you all. I don't know who's on any of the apps. I can't see any of it, but I really, really want to say thank you for listening. And thank you for allowing me to teach the Dharma, because it really helps me. See you. We'll have more details to follow. See you. Thank you.